Looking for more true crime content? You can now get the facts on the world's greatest crime mysteries with the Cold Case Detective podcast every Monday, a week before the episode hits YouTube, by following the link below. For most of us, holidays are supposed to be a fun, relaxing time, a chance to get away from our worries and escape the everyday stresses of a 9-to-5 job and a hectic family schedule. But, unfortunately, not everyone arrives home safe and sound. In today's episode of Cold Case Detective, we'll be discussing just 3 cases of people who went missing or were murdered while traveling. Charles and Catherine Rama. At 3:51 p.m. on Tuesday, April 8th, 1980, Charles and Catherine Rama checked into their hotel and took their belongings to their room. The elderly couple were staying in the Holiday Inn, located along the I-95 and US 341 in Brunswick, Georgia. They were traveling from Miami, Florida, where they had a winter house, back to their home in Scarsdale, New York. Later that day, around 5 p.m, a Georgia highway patrolman saw the couple's car south of Brunswick, near a group of restaurants. The car was rather distinct, which is probably why it stuck with him. It was a black, 2-door 1978 Lincoln Continental, with New York plates reading CRR-CBR. This is the last known sighting of their car, which has never been located since the couple went missing. Several days later, on Friday, April 11th, the staff at the Holiday Inn notified police that they hadn't seen the pair check in and that their room did not appear to have been occupied since they'd dropped off their belongings. The police opened an investigation into the disappearance of the couple. During a search of the room, the police found glasses, a bottle of scotch, and tax returns. They also uncovered Charles's last diary entry from April 7th, which indicated that they would be back in New York by April 10th. Charles, born August 27, 1906, was 73 years old at the time of his disappearance. He was described as an extremely meticulous man, and family and friends believed it was not likely that he would deviate from his plan. The investigation quickly picked up pace. Authorities searched swamps and back roads and utilized both helicopters and drivers, searching for some clue that might lead them to the whereabouts or to learn the fate of the missing couple. They also searched the restaurants and service stations along 120 miles of interstate between the Florida line and Savannah, Georgia. Charles's sons even hired a PI to help with the investigation. Several theories began to take shape in the eyes of authorities and the private investigator. The main theory is that the couple were victims of a robbery and were perhaps killed for the jewelry they adorned themselves with. Charles was a retired Sinclair Oil executive. He lived a lavish lifestyle and had a great deal of personal wealth. Catherine, who was born in July of 1902 and was 77 at the time of her disappearance, married Charles in 1974 after his first marriage fell through. She reportedly left behind $500,000 worth of jewelry just at the hotel room, and often wore anything between $80,000 to $150,000 worth of jewelry at any time. Others have speculated that the couple was run off the road, or perhaps missed a bridge and ended up in a river or swamp while heading to an off-the-beaten-path restaurant. Fishermen near Jekyll Island reported seeing a couple matching their description, but due to the timing of the sighting, authorities suspect that the two couples were not one and the same. In 2004, a woman said her late husband was run off the road by a car resembling the couple's. However, drivers that searched the surrounding area returned to shore empty-handed. There was also an unconfirmed sighting of the pair chatting to a young couple with a small dog. Despite the effort authorities put into locating Charles and Catherine Rama, they have yet to be found. Charles's sons regularly made trips back to Georgia to help keep the case alive, although all these years later, it's unknown if they continue to do so. One of the drivers from the initial marine searches also continues to search for clues in his free time. This man, George Baker, had made 315 searches for them by 1998. However, for all the speculation and searching, it seems that the couple and their car simply vanished from the face of the earth. Sadly, the case of Catherine and Charles Rama remains unsolved and inactive. Ryan Singleton. In July of 2013, a model, aspiring writer and filmmaker, Ryan Singleton, flew from his family home in Atlanta, Georgia to Los Angeles, California. From here, he rented a car so that he could drive to Las Vegas. It's unknown what exactly the purpose of this trip was, although some report that it was simply meant to be a vacation. The 24-year-old was 6'4" and described by friends and family as kind and gentle. For many, his case is cut and dry, but for others, it's not so simple. And what happened to him that summer is still widely discussed 7 years later. Around July 9th, Ryan was driving his car through the desolate Mojave Desert. He was on his way back from Las Vegas. The car broke down near Baker, California, and a highway patrolman gave him a lift to the nearest rest stop at a gas station so he could call for help. The patrolman had reportedly picked up Ryan while he walked along the road, but when the pair went to look for his car, it wasn't there. He also apparently had suffered attacks by animals while walking from his car. At the stop, Ryan called one of his friends, TK, using his mobile. He also called his mother and asked her to send him the $100 he had in his bedroom at home, as he was running low on funds. She agreed, did what he asked, and then attempted to call him back so she could pass along the tracking number for the money. But he never answered his phone. Ryan continued to not respond to calls and texts made to his mobile. In fact, these phone communications were the last time the 24-year-old was heard from. When TK, who lived 3 hours away, arrived at the rest stop, Ryan was nowhere to be found. The young man's sudden disappearance was very quickly reported to local law enforcement. The following day, on July 10th, Ryan's car was located a few miles north of where he and the officer had been looking for it, and on July 11th, his mother found out that her son had been receiving financial help from numerous people. It's unknown why Ryan's trip was being funded by others, or what exactly it was that they were funding. 2.5 months later, on September 21st, Ryan's body was found by joggers about 2 miles from the gas station. He was fully clothed but for his shirt, which was missing, and most of his organs were gone. He was also missing much of his skin, several ribs, and some of his teeth. He was almost entirely skeletal. His remains weighed just 50 pounds. After the initial gruesome discovery, there was much speculation surrounding Ryan's case. Everyone who read about it seemed to immediately suspect that the young man had fallen victim to organ harvesters, but this is heavily disputed by experts, who explain that it's much more likely that his organs were taken by scavenging animals. Organ harvesting is also apparently not as common as many people seem to think, and experts on the case have repeatedly said that there are easier ways to go about obtaining organs. The main discrepancy in Ryan's post-mortem is that he appeared to have suffered a skull fracture. However, once again, experts have debunked this, claiming it was an injury that occurred after death. Due to the state of decomposition, a cause of death could not be determined by the medical examiner. For many, the animal scavenging hypothesis is an acceptable answer for the state of Ryan's body and is much more believable than an organ harvesting ring was responsible. What throws up more questions, however, is much of Ryan's backstory and the investigation that took place after he went missing. Ryan was 21 when he began to pursue his dreams of being a model. He moved to New York and quickly began to receive modeling gigs. These all went well for him, but then he decided to set his sights on the bright lights of Hollywood. He and 2 of his friends made the trip to LA, filming the entire adventure and turning it into a docu-series called Are We Famous Yet? After some time, Ryan returned to New York, where he got married to a man twice his age. His mother found out about this via Facebook. She did not know Ryan's new spouse and had never met him. However, the marriage quickly crumbled, and Ryan returned home to his mother in Georgia in the spring of 2013. His spouse called Ryan's mother that summer while he was away in California. He claimed that the 24-year-old was in danger, but did not elaborate on why or how. Meanwhile, Ryan had asked his mother not to tell his spouse where he was, but she revealed his location to him when she grew concerned, having not heard from her son in several days. According to Ryan's spouse, when the pair last spoke, the young man sounded like he'd been drinking. However, none of the law enforcement officers who encountered Ryan noticed this, and his autopsy in September of 2013 showed that he had no traces of drugs or alcohol in his system. But things became stranger still when it was found that the car Ryan had rented appeared to have been wiped down. There was no trace of evidence or fingerprints in the vehicle. It was also found to have contained his backpack and mobile phone, the same phone he'd used to contact friends and family when he was last heard from. It's unknown how this occurred, since earlier that day Ryan couldn't find his car. His last movements are shrouded in mystery. Then, in 2017, California Highway Patrol and Nevada Highway Patrol both claimed to have no record of Ryan interacting with members of their departments. Family and friends can't figure out why anyone would want to kill Ryan, although his former spouse doesn't believe that he simply collapsed and died, speculating that he was, perhaps, a victim of a hate crime. Although it seems likely Ryan's organs weren't harvested, the circumstances surrounding his death are disturbing and peculiar nonetheless. As of 2020, no one can really be sure what exactly happened in Ryan's tragic final hours. Judy Bradford. Judy Bradford was working as a home care nurse in Boston in the mid-80s when she met lawyer Jeffrey Smith. Judy cared for Jeffrey's father following an operation he'd had on his throat. Twice divorced with 2 children from her second marriage, Judy began a relationship with Jeffrey, and after 10 years together, the pair got married in 1996. 8 months into their marriage, the couple decided to attend a conference together in Philadelphia from April 9th to April 11th, 1997. The plan was that Judy would explore the city during the day while Jeffrey attended the conference, and then they would meet up in the evening. They also had intentions of spending the rest of the week afterwards visiting New Jersey. The flight out to Philadelphia was from Logan International Airport on April 9th. However, things didn't go to plan when Judy realized she'd left her driver's license at home. Recent regulation changes required airlines to verify passenger IDs before boarding. She told Jeffrey to go ahead on the flight, and that she'd catch the next one once she'd been home to retrieve her ID. The pair caught up with one another that night in the lobby of the Doubletree Hotel in Center City, Philadelphia, where the conference was being held. The next day, after breakfast, Jeffrey headed to the first day's session, while Judy made her own plans to visit tourist spots before heading back to the hotel for a conference cocktail party with her husband at 6 p.m. Later on, as it neared time for the party, Jeffrey went to the couple's shared room but found that his other half wasn't there. Assuming she had gotten confused about their arrangement and had already headed to the party, Jeffrey went downstairs to look for her. However, Judy wasn't there. For a while, he bounced between the party and their room, hoping to bump into her, but Judy never appeared. He then informed hotel staff, who called local hospitals to see if Judy had turned up there. Meanwhile, Jeffrey left the party and paid a taxi to follow the route of the tour bus Judy had told him she'd be using that day, but there was no sign of her. He then called his stepchildren, asking them to check for any phone messages she might have left. It was midnight by the time Jeffrey tried to report his wife missing, but he was told by police that he had to wait at least until morning, if not the full 24 hours, before he could file a missing person report. After a sleepless night of tossing and turning, Jeffrey called police first thing that morning. This time he was successful in listing his wife as a missing person. 4 days later, police speculated about whether Judy, 51 at the time, was having some sort of midlife crisis and whether perhaps she had disappeared for attention. They then wondered if she had ever come to Philadelphia in the first place. They couldn't understand how Judy, an experienced solo traveller, could forget her driver's license, but Jeffrey repeatedly explained that she had only flown once since the new regulations were put in place 18 months earlier. According to authorities, only one witness could corroborate seeing Judy at the hotel, and there was no guest register either to help place her there. Several reported sightings were called in to authorities as media coverage of the case grew, but most of these are not deemed to be credible. One homeless man did identify Judy by her photo and told the family on April 15th that they had just missed her, but Judy was never found in the area. A detective who searched the room noted that there were no cosmetics and that Judy's remaining clothing hadn't been worn, suggesting that she'd worn the same outfit 2 days in a row. However, her daughter confirmed that this was usual behaviour for her mother when she went travelling. Then, Jeffrey refused to take a lie detector test. He requested that the FBI administer it, and that if he passed, the police department request the FBI's help to work the investigation. The police claimed that Jeffrey had said this after knowing the FBI wouldn't join, and that he refused when they made the offer that the Massachusetts State Police would handle the polygraph test, instead of the local PD. While police continued on with the investigation, Jeffrey worked hard at trying to bring home his missing wife. He hired 2 private investigators, put up posters with her children, and faxed Judy's picture and information to hospitals up and down the country, hoping that someone, somewhere, had answers. On September 7th of 1997, 5 months after Judy was last seen, a father and son out hunting in an area of North Carolina's Pisgah National Forest found what appeared to be human bones near the Stony Fork picnic area along Chestnut Creek, a little over 9 miles from Asheville. The bones had been scattered, most likely by wildlife, and at the centre of this area was a shallow grave, where the majority of the clothed skeleton remained, still partially buried. The medical examiner determined that the bones belonged to a white woman aged between 40 and 55, with extensive dental work and arthritis in one knee. Cut marks on the ribs and clothing indicated that she had died from being repeatedly stabbed, and the case was ruled as homicide. An ER doctor in North Carolina who saw the discovered body in the media thought it might possibly be Judy, whose information he had received by fax. He let the police know his suspicions. Detectives then requested Judy's dental records, which were then forwarded to the medical examiner. By the end of September, it had been confirmed. The skeletal body found in the forest was that of missing 51-year-old Judy Bradford. The Buncombe Sheriff's Office led the investigation into her murder. It was determined that the clothes Judy wore were not the same ones she had been wearing when she was last seen by Jeffrey and other witnesses. She was clad in jeans, thermal underwear and hiking boots, clothing which was appropriate for hiking in the Asheville Mountains in the middle of April. The body had no wallet or ID, but a blue vinyl backpack was found in Judy's possession. Inside was winter clothing and $80 in cash. Her shirt had been buried nearby, and it also had money in the pockets, $87. This $167 was consistent with the $200 Jeffrey suspected his wife had been carrying at the time of her disappearance. Given that Judy still wore her wedding band and the money was left untouched, authorities ruled out robbery as a motive in the case. The red backpack that Judy always travelled with was not found, and it has never been located, nor were the clothes that she was last seen in. Expensive sunglasses were found on the body, but the family did not recognise them as belonging to the 51-year-old. On the whole, the family were baffled by this turn of events. According to them, Judy had expressed no desire to travel to Asheville. She had only visited the city on 2 occasions, once when she was visiting Jeffrey, and the other when she was accompanying a patient when they went to see the family. A clerk from a nearby store then stepped forward, recalling the interaction they'd had with Judy months earlier in April. She had appeared alert and pleasant, and there didn't seem to be anything wrong. She had mentioned that she had an attorney husband from Boston who was attending a conference in Philadelphia, and that during that time she had decided to visit Asheville. A further 2 people saw Judy, or a woman matching her description, in a grey sedan. The witness was a deli owner who claimed she'd bought $30 worth of sandwiches and a toy truck. The other was an employee at Baltimore Estate and remembered that Judy had asked if she could spend the night in her car at the nearby campground. When she was told no, she drove off, and the employee noticed that her car was filled with boxes and bags. These sightings are considered credible by local investigators. Eventually, Jeffrey Smith was ruled out as a suspect in his wife's case by the Buncombe Sheriff's Department, but not by Philadelphia PD. He died 8 years later in 2005. It was believed that Jeffrey was too morbidly obese to have been able to take Judy's body up the hill where she had been found. He also had an alibi for the day she went missing, which was corroborated by several people. While a friend suggested that the couple had problems in their marriage, which may have led Judy to want some time away from her husband, Jeffrey, along with Judy's adult children, say this is not true and that the marriage was fine. There has been a multitude of different theories surrounding Judy's case. It was briefly speculated that Gary Michael Hilton may have been responsible for the murder. Dubbed the National Park serial killer, Hilton had murdered an elderly couple in October of 2007 in the Pisgah National Forest where Judy was found. He was later arrested and convicted of several crimes, but has never been positively linked with Judy's murder. Online sleuths have wondered if Judy planned to disappear and then met with foul play, but others have asked if she was so unhappy in her marriage, why did she go to Philadelphia at all when she could have stayed home? It's also been postulated that Judy was suffering from early onset dementia, or maybe even dissociative fugue disorder, or that the body isn't Judy's at all. Others have suggested that the couple perhaps planned the disappearance together as some sort of insurance scam, but that something went terribly wrong. A detective with the Buncombe Sheriff's Department said he believed that Judy went to Asheville voluntarily and that she was killed where she was found, as it would have been difficult to drag or move the body to that location. Other members of the police force believe Judy's killer is not native to North Carolina, but perhaps has ties there. Jeffrey mentioned that his wife was the type of person to stop and help someone out. Perhaps her killer lured her away by feigning injury or sickness. Although there is an abundance of theories in Judy's case, there are very few answers. As the years go by, her case grows colder and remains a mystery. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. If you're still hungry for true crime content, you can catch the Cold Case Detective podcast linked below. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.